we talk about to my listeners, this is gonna be a good conversation. We talk about celibacy, and this is a very serious conversation. So now, when we speak the word celibacy,
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
Okay, celibacy. In general terms, everybody thinks of celibacy. They think of probably priests and nuns and people who are in religion who take a vow of celibacy, and that's when you don't have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And for those people in the religious sector, of course, that's a lifetime journey that they're doing. But I mention it as an abstinence, where you're just not having sex, whether you have had sex before or never had sex. You're not having sex at the moment, and so the celibacy. That's what I'm talking about. Just not having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
that's all forms of sex.
oh, okay, all forms. Okay, so good point. I'm glad you said that, because when we talk about all forms of sex, there's touching, there's kissing, there's sexual intercourse. There's all kinds of sex. So are we talking about those included? All of that?
Well, touching and kissing is not sex.
Well, it's a form. I guess it's an introductory to sex. It's part of that pre-part. You know that.
Right.
Yeah. So some people call it that. You know, because okay, it's like this. If you're married, you don't want your husband or your wife kissing anybody, because you know you can get very jealous, more so than having sexual intercourse. So it's sort of, but I guess you got a point there.
Okay.
So, okay. Now, do you believe that minds connect and we are equal yoke? You believe in that?
Well, I do believe that minds can connect. Well, I guess you gotta kind of go into that a little bit more. What are you asking me?
Okay, I guess sometimes people say that when they get married that they're equal yoke. I've heard that before.
Yes.
So they're compatible.
Right.
You know, and they recognize it.
Right.
You know, so when we talking about minds connecting, do you believe that people can say, you know what, we connect?
Right.
You know, do you think that's really something that happens?
Well, and I think that's one of the things I talk about in the book. This is a 3-part book. Is it's a series. However, that's one of the things I talk about, the benefit of being able to emotionally connect, and I think that's where and mentally connect. I think that's where you're going with it. So those are a couple of benefits, because a lot of times people just go for attraction, how somebody looks. And if somebody is able to, make them, feel a certain way. But yes, when it comes to couples getting together, it's important, I think, when equally yoked, a lot of people think is a lot of different things. Spiritually, equally yoked, the same beliefs, I believe, the same, the mind frame as far as God is concerned. Some people take it to the physical world, like the same kind of money that they're making.
Right, exactly.
The same kind of intellect, and but I think it's important to connect mentally, of course, absolutely.
Now, with that being said, I heard you say something about physical. Do you believe in physical attraction? And how important is that?
I think it's important, but I think people put too much emphasis on it. Because if you're physically attracted and then you have nothing else there, then it's what I call an empty relationship. So you've gotten in a relationship, may have had sex, and then you find out later you're not compatible, or sometimes that you don't even like the person, but you've already gotten into this whole relationship because of physical attraction.
Okay. Good point. So physical attraction is a very complex situation, because in relation to your book, someone can be physically attractive and then, say for instance, they wait, like your book.
Right.
They wait and say, I like how you look, you're beautiful, and they wait a year or so and be celibate, and all of a sudden they get married, and then they decide to indulge in sexual engagements, things like that. But then they don't like each other.
Well, sexually, are you talking about sexual compatibility?
Sexually, because their physical look good, but they're not sexually compatible.
Well, and this is interesting. I have this conversation a lot and there's usually men who bring it up, because men are concerned that they'll wait and then they won't like, the sex, basically. And I say to that, sex is something that can be worked on, because it's like riding a bike. mean, because like seriously,
Is it?
it's like a, if you are, so my belief is if you are in love with a person, if you're emotionally connected and all those other connections, then the sex is going to be good because of all of that. However, and that's, I think, why it's so important to wait, because if you have all this experience with all kind of people, then you're judgmental about people's sex. However, sex can be, in my opinion, it can be worked on. It can be, you know what I mean? It can be something that can grow together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that if you don't, if you're not compatible sexually at the beginning, that's something that can happen over time. That's what I believe, but I don't think that that's a case. That's an issue for people who are in love and they're connected in those ways. Because I think if you're in love, it's going to be good because you're passionate about each other. You're in love with each other. You're mentally there. You're spiritually there. All those other things will make the sex good.